Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about thinking through requirements. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, do you immediately start thinking through the solution after you read the requirements of your story? Shit, I started thinking through the solution while they're talking because yeah, well, I don't know. I can't say it any better than this is what I do. I when we are grooming stories and they're usually reading the requirements and trying to sort of define and explain things. I usually read the card while we're usually doing some type of screen share or something where we're going through like what the specification is, and it's usually very quick that you sort of figure out, okay, I sort of know exactly. I know I have the code in my head now. There are a few unknowns that I need to clarify, and now we need to ask the questions, which is sort of this is what happens when I've told you said a few times that the main difference between a senior level software developer, like an experienced developer, and someone who is very junior, doesn't know who hasn't worked so much, is not so much necessarily the skill in coding in terms of like how well you can structure all algorithms and stuff like that. That absolutely does factor into a point depending on the profiles and so forth. But usually the main thing is the experience that you have, because you build so many so much stuff that it's like when you've gone through your 100, 1,000, like I don't even know how many stories I've done by now. It's the functionality that they're asking for is usually like a flavor of something I've already done. So I already know how to even stub up the code. I know roughly what unit test I'm going to have to write, and you sort of see it with the sixth sense, like you already know what needs to be done. And this is what's very useful about that, is that it's very dangerous as well. You have to be very humble, because it's the classic one is, and I actually used to have a teacher who used to do this really obnoxious thing that I fell for every goddamn time, and he loved it. And I hated it. What he would do was that he would give us a task, like a programming challenge thing, and he set a bunch of requirements of what the system was going to do. And he told us, read the whole specification and make sure that you know what you're supposed to do before you start implementing. And I promised, said, yeah, sure. And then I started reading criteria 1, started working, built criteria 1, and then 2, and then 3. And at the end of that criteria list, he would put something that would undo all the work that I had done, because I needed to do that before I did anything else. I can't now exactly remember what it was, but I remember going there and going, fuck. I did all this work, and because I didn't read the whole specification, I ended up making a bunch of assumptions, and he knew I was going to do that, and so I fell into that pit. And so I urge you to do the same thing, right? Even if you sort of start immediately realizing that, yeah, this is sort of how you're going to do this, and you start almost building interfaces in your head already, it's really, really important that you make sure that if you have any unknowns or any sort of questions, let the conversation take time. Don't shut off and like not listen, because it's actually funny how many times I find, and take it from me on this one, if the conversation is allowed to live its own life, when you ask questions and sort of like just try to clarify things and say them out loud, which is one of the reasons I am a very big fan of something like event storming and these sorts of workflows, or even just doing if you're working with BDD, just declaring scenarios as a team where you have to, as a group, define and say out loud specifically what's going to happen. The reason why that is very useful, like it's super annoying if you want to get stuff done, because everybody always has their own interpretation of things and so forth and so forth. So there's a lot of talking that goes on. So That's the downside, but that's also the strength of it, because many a times you might think that you're smarter than you are. I've been here 100 times before where I thought like, yeah, I know exactly what to do here, and then someone asks something for clarification, and then there's more information, and I realize that, damn, actually there was something I didn't think about here. Now I have a question. So you get inspired by each other by just trying to state the things, and then you repeat that process, which of course it's like, that's basically democracy. Yeah, it takes longer, but the quality, hopefully, of the findings is higher because you're taking the time to actually converse about whatever requirements you might have. So even though you might have a very good idea, I've tried to adopt this practice, and I suggest you do the same thing if you ever get to that point where you sort of already know how to build things. And then you just do it. You say it out loud. Yeah, I usually pseudocode it. I say, well, I'm going to probably first I'm going to have to declare a service. I'm probably going to create some type of endpoint for this thing, and then there's going to be a few unit tests. Like, I can almost go through a very basic to-do list, and then if I forget something, if I have a really good hungry team with me, they're gonna go, yeah, but you forgot about doing that, and we should probably do that, and that code there, I remember that one, that should probably be refactored, and all of a sudden you're all joining into the conversation. So it's good to, as I said, just as a rule, take it, you don't have to do it, it's up to you, but I've always found that even when you can already see the solution in your head, say it out loud. It's almost like rubber ducking, but just do it while you're grooming the store or something like that, because you will be surprised at how many times, if you have a really good healthy team, people will just go, yeah, actually that sounds like a good idea, or you might give someone else an idea, or they might come with some type of input that actually enhances your understanding of the specification. So what I want you to take away from this is that I am definitely the sort of guy who, like, yeah, I have this, usually have the solution in my head before the product owner has stopped talking for almost all the things, and I have most of the questions that I need to ask, which is, as I said, like asking the right sort of questions. That's very important when you're defining a story scope and talking with a product owner or some type of stakeholder. So it's very good if you have these sort of, if you have this sort of ability, which I can basically guarantee you that you're going to get to a point like that when you have done this for long enough, because as I said, it's sort of, in the beginning you don't know how to do anything, you're just trying to build up enough experience so that you can build the basic stuff, but after a few years of working, it's sort of like you go to a higher level of understanding where it's sort of like, yeah, this is just another version of this thing, it's just another version of this thing, so you already know half the thing before you even, like, the person has even stopped talking, right? And if you can, try to stay humble here, try to not become like some type of arrogant person who just assumes that you're the smartest person in the room just because you already know how to solve the problem, and allow the conversation to live a little bit, because I promise you, you are not flawless, and there's so many times my ass have been, damn, like I burnt my ass because, as I said, because I thought I knew when I didn't know, and I've been saved by just trying to say out loud, almost pseudocoding a little bit how I'm going to solve this problem, and then letting the team talk a little bit about it, because you will be surprised at how many times you will get useful insights from it. My favorite reference for this is that show House. So Dr. House, yeah, I haven't watched the show for a long time, but the basic idea of what he does, which I think is absolutely genius, is that he is probably, I mean, the most senior experienced doctor in the room, but he also has his understudies that all are in a conversation with him about how to solve these different cases, right? And he is talking, and he is saying out loud what he's thinking while the others are joining in. It becomes an open discussion about thoughts about how to solve a problem. He's basically rubber ducking with an entire room, and he doesn't give a shit about, well, he shouldn't, at least the times I've seen it. He doesn't care about whether or not it makes him seem incompetent or not, because he's confident in that if he's just saying that I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that, etc., etc., that's not a prestige thing. He's actually just opening up the conversation and giving others the possibility to help him with his own thought process. And I try to follow the same sort of pattern, because if you're just courageous enough to say, I know that we should do this, and that, but these two things I'm a little bit unsure about, all of a sudden other people can now sort of hook on to what you said, and the conversation takes a life of its own. And that is really, really great in the right team. Have a great day.